parties. Court arbitrators are appointed persons from the social life of Phuket, mostly business people, and main judge, and they try to arbitrate between the two parties. You have a claim of 100,000, you don't want to pay, let's try to settle this somewhere in the middle, for example. They are not there to decide on the case. They don't even really want to listen to what your argument is. They want to settle the case. And they have a great rate of about, when they started it off, what is it, maybe now 5 years ago, 70% of the civil cases settled. So the arbitrators are really working hard and pushing both parties. And for everybody to understand, if you have your lawyers there, they don't want to hear the lawyer speaking. They want to hear the person speaking. Why you don't want to hear it? Be aware that this case might take on another 1.5 years and then goes into arbitration, maybe another 4 years on top. So they push each party to settle the case. For them, there's only one goal: settle the case. But for arbitration, it takes only about 3 months, and you're the first time in court to sit down with the other party to arbitrate. So you can maybe cut off a year or something from your case. And once settled, you sign a settlement agreement. It is as good as any judgment from the court. You can take this then to enforcement. So if you go to court, you might say, okay, I want to go to court, but I don't want to go the whole 9 yards. I want to try to settle it in arbitration. And you try to find an agreement with your lawyers on only doing that step. Court fees and everything is still the same. The big news on Phuket actually is that what happened in Bangkok before already, it was extended to the provinces now, is that you could ask for arbitration in court without filing a case. You can go to the arbitration department in court and say, look, I have a claim here, I want to settle it through arbitration. Can you send a notice to the other party to come to court and we'll try to arbitrate this? You have no court fees. You still have to translate documents you give to the court, and you should have somebody with you who can speak Thai. But there are no fees involved. Disadvantage though is that the court cannot force the other party to come to court. They send a notice and say the other party has a claim and ask you to come for arbitration. So if you take the notice, the receiving party of the notice takes the notice and throws it away, nothing happens. You don't do that with a court order. But the arbitration has no power to force you to come to court. And if you don't come, there is no case. Normally, if you file in court and you don't go to court, you lose your case. The court gives a judgment. That doesn't happen if you go only for arbitration. If you file your case and try through arbitration and the arbitration doesn't work, it goes back into the courtroom and the case will be closed by the judge. If you go only through arbitration, there is no closure. So it's a way to try it. It's got advantage, it's cheap, it's quick, it's like any settlement. Once you sign, it's settled in court. It's like a court order, the same thing. You don't need a lawyer at all. You can do it yourself if you have an interpreter. And the disadvantage I mentioned already. So going from these 3 possibilities, if the case is not settled, it goes to the judge, the witnesses are heard, the court is making a decision. Let's say after 1.5 years you won the case. You have a paper from the court that says the other party has to pay your claim, and the other party still doesn't pay. You have to go back to court again and ask for enforcement of your claim. Having then the paper from the judge that you can enforce the claim, you have to go to the enforcement agency, government agency, and say, I have a claim here and they want to enforce it. The government agency will then ask you, so what you want to enforce it on? Please bring us the assets from the other party so we can enforce it. We can freeze those assets or take the bank account, money which is in there, to pay you back. And if you don't have these, nothing we can do about it. So you have to find the assets from the other party to actually enforce your claim. So having a paper by the judge saying ordered to pay doesn't mean you get paid. So normally the first thing you have to take a look at, if you go to court with your claim, is does the other party have money to pay you? If you win. Because otherwise it's you pay money for lawyers, for court, for translator, for interpretation and everything, and at the end what you get is a nice paper, which is worth not a lot. That's from my side, very quickly on enforcement of your invoices.